Chapter 1. Fire in the Void. The orbital city of Veyra Prime hung against the darkness like a jewel crown, spires of glass and metal piercing the void, neon veins pulsing with alien script, docking arms stretching into the abyss like the limbs of some colossal machine. Cale Morgan leaned against a railing in docking Sector 9, his tool satchel slung across one shoulder, listening to the steady thrum of power conduits beneath the floor. To most, it was just background noise. To him, it was music, the rhythm of life in the void. That's when the alarms cut through the hum. A crippled vessel spun beyond the outer gates, sparks trailing from its fractured hull. The voice over the comms was frantic, thick with a Veyran accent. Shields failing, main drives offline, crew suffocating. The patrol ships hesitated, protocols tangling in chains of bureaucracy. The Veyrans waited for orders. Cale moved. "Open that dock gate now," he barked at the nearest controller, shoving past their elegant silver uniforms. "This is restricted. Human interference." Cale ignored them, fingers flying over the override panel. Sparks leapt from exposed wiring, the air filling with the acrid bite of burnt ozone. If you don't vent your auxiliary grid, their life support's gone in 90 seconds. The Veyran officer faltered. Humans weren't supposed to touch their systems. Not here. Yet the certainty in Cale's voice made her hesitate, then obey. The gates yawned open, magnetic clamps seizing the broken vessel as Cale dashed inside. The corridor stank of coolant and scorched alloy. He forced open a hatch, prying loose a melted panel with his bare hands until blood streaked across his knuckles. A row of alien eyes stared back at him from the smoke. Slender beings with iridescent skin, gasping in thin air. He dragged them toward the emergency pods one by one, his lungs searing from the atmosphere imbalance. Last among them was her. She stood upright despite the fumes, her bearing regal even in ruin. Eyes like molten silver locked on his, unblinking, appraising, unlike the others. She didn't shrink from him. She held out a trembling hand, her voice carrying the faintest tremor of disbelief. "You are human?" Cale grinned through a cough, shoving a rebreather mask into her palm. "Last I checked." For the briefest moment, their skin brushed as she took it. Her touch was cool, almost electric, sending a spark through her more jarring than the crackle of failing conduits. She hesitated before lowering the mask over her lips, her gaze never leaving his. When the last of her people were secured, Cale collapsed against the bulkhead, chest heaving. The Veyran patrol finally surged in, pristine uniforms gleaming, as if they hadn't been frozen by indecision moments before. The woman approached him, every step graceful despite the chaos. She studied him like an artifact, both dangerous and fascinating. Her lips parted as if to thank him, then closed, unsaid words lingering like static in the air. "You're kind," she said at last, voice soft but edged. "Acts without permission, without order." Cale smirked, wiping soot from his cheek with the back of his bleeding hand. "Yeah, but we get things done." Her eyes flickered with something he couldn't name. And in that flicker, Cale Morgan knew. The fire that had sparked here in the void was only the beginning. Chapter 2. A Kiss Before War. The gardens of Veyra Prime floated within a crystalline dome, the suspended platforms drifting like islands over pools of luminescent water. Bioluminescent vines curled around hovering lanterns, their glow mingling with the cold stars beyond the transparent ceiling. It was the closest the station ever came to nature, though everything was engineered, trimmed, and coded into obedience. Cale Morgan stood awkwardly among the sculpted flora, grease still under his fingernails from the day's repairs. He felt like a blemish on the perfection around him, yet she had asked for him to come. And there she was. Serenia moved through the garden as if she belonged to the starlight itself. Draped in flowing fabric that shimmered like liquid silver, she was every inch the diplomat, composed, poised, untouchable. But when her eyes found Kale, her lips curved into something more fragile than her mask of duty, a smile meant for him alone. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered as she reached him, though her hand brushed his wrist as if testing whether he was real. "Humans are tolerated on Veyra Prime. Tolerated, Kale, not invited." "Guess I've got a talent for showing up where I shouldn't," he replied with a grin, though his voice carried a husky edge. They walked together among the hovering bridges, their footsteps echoing softly in the engineered silence. Serenia spoke of negotiations, how Veyra and Earth balanced on the edge of alliance and betrayal, how factions on both sides whispered against cooperation. Each word was heavy with unspoken danger. "And us?" Kale asked finally. His question cracked the surface of diplomacy, plunging into something raw. "Where do we fit in all this?" She stopped on a platform above the glowing pool, her reflection rippling with the water. For a long moment, the hum of distant engines filled the silence between them. Then she turned, eyes molten silver, voice trembling despite her practiced calm. "We don't fit anywhere. Not here, not with your people, not in the stars between. What burns between us is forbidden, Kale. Dangerous." Kale took a step closer, his rough boots loud against the polished floor. "Since when did danger stop humans?" Her lips parted in protest, but his hand found hers, callous skin against smooth alien silk. She gasped softly at the warmth, at the unyielding honesty in his touch. Slowly, hesitantly, she let herself lean into him. When their lips met, it was not gentle. It was fierce, desperate, a collision of worlds. The kiss tasted of ozone and starlight, of something neither laws nor treaties could contain. When they broke apart, Serenia's breath trembled. She rested her forehead against his, whispering words that cut deeper than any blade. "This moment is all we'll ever have. Tomorrow, I may have to deny you, to protect us both." Kale's jaw tightened, but his voice was steady, stubborn. "Then tonight has to be enough. And if tomorrow comes, we'll fight it together." Her eyes shimmered, torn between duty and longing. The engines of Veyra Prime thrummed in the distance, echoing the heartbeat of a galaxy teetering on the edge of war. Chapter 3. The Cold Edge of Loyalty. The docking ring of Veyra Prime was chaos. Sirens pulsing crimson waves across the metallic corridors, security drones swarming like wasps, their lenses glowing a menacing blue. Hollow screens flare with the Council's decree. Human suspect apprehend on sight. Kale Morgan's name blazed in alien glyphs, his image flickering across every panel. The accusation was simple, brutal: saboteur. Kale ducked into a service tunnel, the scent of scorched wiring clinging to the air. Sweat dripped into his eyes, mixing with the grime smeared across his face. His hand still throbbed from where he'd pried open conduits days before. Now those same instincts told him he was being hunted not by faulty circuits, but by a system desperate for a scapegoat. The hiss of the hatch behind him snapped his head around. She was there. Serenia. She stepped through the smoke like a shard of moonlight, flanked by guards in polished silver armor. But her hand lifted, halting them. Her eyes found Kale's, molten silver hardening to steel. "They say you sabotaged the council chambers," she said, her voice carrying both accusation and disbelief. "That the explosion was yours to ignite." Kale's laugh was harsh, bitter. "You know me. Do I look like someone who plots in shadows?" Her gaze wavered, just for a breath, just long enough for Kale to see the fracture in her resolve. "I defended you," she whispered. "When the council demanded your arrest, I stood against them. But Kale, I must ask, did I fight for a lie?" The words hit harder than the drone stun bolts that hummed at the ready behind her. Kale's chest tightened, his fists clenching until his knuckles cracked. "You think I could betray you? After everything? After that night?" Her lips trembled, but her voice sharpened. "My people say humans act on impulse, that you are fire without control. That what you call courage is just recklessness waiting to destroy everything it touches. And you? Kale shot back, stepping forward despite the guards' raised rifles. What do you say? For a heartbeat, her mask slipped, her shoulders sagged, the diplomat's armor falling away to reveal the woman who had kissed him like the galaxy itself might end. Her eyes glistened with something dangerously close to sorrow. I say, I don't know. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the distant thrum of the station's reactors. Then, with a gesture sharp as a blade, she turned. Go, before they drag you in chains. I cannot save you twice. Kale didn't wait. He sprinted into the tunnels, boots pounding against metal, heart heavier than any accusation. He wasn't just running from guards now. He was running from the shattering truth that Serena, the woman who had set his soul ablaze, no longer knew if she believed in him. The cold edge of her doubt cut deeper than the void itself. Chapter 4, Goodbye Across the Stars. The docking bay was a cavern of shadows and steel, its vast doors yawning toward the endless night beyond. Cargo drones drifted silently across the deck, their sensor lights sweeping like watchful eyes. Kale pressed himself into the alcove of a loading crane, breath ragged, heart pounding against the cold plating. He had the proof clutched tight in his satchel, a shard of corrupted Veyran code, the signature of the faction truly responsible for the sabotage. Enough to clear his name. Enough to expose the rot eating the council. And yet he was waiting, because she had promised she would come. The hiss of hydraulics carried across the empty dock. A sleek diplomatic shuttle stood ready, its hull glimmering with the crest of Veyra's High Council. Down the ramp, Serena emerged, her silver cloak trailing like liquid starlight. Kale stepped out of the shadows. Serena? His voice cracked her name in two. She froze, eyes locking on him, eyes that had once burned with warmth now flickering with the cold of duty. She crossed the deck with the grace of someone walking to her own execution. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, though her hand trembled as she reached for his cheek. Her fingertips brushed the grime and blood smudging his skin, and for a heartbeat, the weight of the galaxy seemed to vanish. I have proof, Kale said quickly, shoving the shard of data into her palm. It wasn't me. It never was. They're tearing us apart because they're afraid of what humans and Veyrans could be together. Her hand closed over shard, but her gaze never softened. I believe you, she admitted, voice low. Then, after a pause that stretched like a knife against his ribs, but it doesn't matter. If I speak for you, the council will fall. The peace we've built will crumble. My people will call me traitor. Let them, Kale growled, stepping closer, his voice raw with desperation. Let them burn their council down. We can leave. You and me. There are other stars, other worlds. We don't need them. Her lips trembled. For one reckless second, she leaned forward, and their mouths met, hungry, desperate, a kiss that tasted of everything they could never have. Her body pressed to his, cool and fire all at once, her breath mingling with his until the hum of engines blurred into silence. Then she tore away. Her silver eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her words were colder than the void. This is where it ends, Kale. For both our peoples. For us. No! His voice cracked, but he grabbed her wrist, refusing to let go. Don't you dare leave me with that. Don't you dare make me believe this meant nothing. She wrenched free, her cloak swirling like a blade of ice. It meant everything. That's why I have to go. The ramp retracted. The shuttle's thrusters ignited, a rising roar that drowned out Kale's heartbeat. He stood alone on the deck as the vessel lifted, a streak of silver vanishing into the abyss. And for the first time since he'd left Earth's skies, the void around Kale Morgan felt truly, utterly empty. Chapter 5, Human Fire, Alien Ice. The war came like a storm, swift, merciless, and colder than the void itself. Cale Morgan stood on the bridge of human frigate, the Resolute, its hull groaning under the stress of acceleration. Outside the viewport, the black was alive with streaks of plasma fire and the burning carcasses of ships. The Veyran separatists, the same faction that framed him, now pushed their fleets against both Earth and the Veyran loyalists. And somehow, Cale had been pulled into command. "Shields collapsing on the port side," shouted Ensign Ree, her voice sharp against the hum of failing systems. "Their cruisers are locking us down. Sir, they're better than us." Cale's jaw clenched. The Veyrans were older, faster, their ships forged from alloys humans hadn't even dreamed of 2 centuries ago. But they were predictable, every maneuver calculated, every decision bound by the chains of protocol. Humans weren't bound. "Cut main engines," Cale barked. The crew froze, staring. "Sir, that'll..." "Do it." The Resolute shuddered, momentum bleeding away. Enemy fire shot past their bow, overshooting what a frigate should have been. In the stunned silence, Cale grinned, teeth bared. "Humans don't fight fair," he muttered. "Now!" "Roll the ship, vent port stabilizers, and fire thrusters starboard. Make us tumble like we're crippled." The frigate spun violently, alarm shrieking as artificial gravity hiccuped. Loose tools clattered, crew cursed, but Cale stood firm, one hand braced against the railing. The enemy cruisers shifted formation, circling like vultures around what they thought was dying prey. "Now!" Cale growled, eyes flashing. "Bring the cannons online. Full spread." The Resolute unleashed hell. Plasma bolts tore from the frigate's belly, ripping through the enemy's exposed flanks. One cruiser detonated in a burst of white fire. Another limped smoking into the dark. Human cheers filled the bridge, raw and unpolished. Nothing like the elegant silence of Veyran command ships. Cale let them cheer. Let them feel it. Because this chaos, this reckless brilliance, was what it meant to be human. But even as victory flickered on the edges of possibility, ice lingered in Cale's chest. Serena's words haunted him, colder than the vacuum. "This is where it ends, Cale." "No, this wasn't the end. This isn't just our fight," he said to his crew, his voice carrying over the din. "The Veyrans think we're fire without control. Let's show them fire can light the stars. We're not dying here. We're proving we belong out here." His crew roared in answer, fists slamming consoles, hearts beating in rhythm with his fury. The Resolute plunged back into the fray, a lone ember burning against the ice of an alien armada. And in that moment, the galaxy learned what it had always underestimated. Humans never stop fighting. Chapter 6, colder than death, brighter than flame. The war ended not with triumph, but with silence. Ships that had once filled the void with fire now drifted as husks, their broken hulls turning slowly into gravity wells of nearby moons. Across Veyra Prime, the neon-lit spires still stood, but their glow was dimmer, muted by the weight of too many dead. Cale Morgan stood alone on a balcony overlooking Earthrise from the orbital embassy, blue and white marble rising against the black sea of space. The Resolute was in dry dock, her scars being welded shut, her crew scattered. Cale himself was celebrated as a hero. Commendations, handshakes, endless questions about the human spark that had turned a doomed battle into survival. But none of it filled the hollow inside him. He reached into his jacket and pulled free the shard of Veyran data, its crystal edges still glimmering faintly. Proof of the faction that had betrayed them all. Proof Serena had taken from his hand that night, before she left him. Her goodbye echoed in him still. "This is where it ends, Cale. For both our peoples. For us." He closed his eyes, gripping the railing until his knuckles ached. For all the fire in his veins, for all the battles fought and won, nothing had hurt more than the cool finality of her voice. Yet even in that wound there was a flame, because Serenia had believed in him, if only for a moment, because her kiss had set something burning in him that no council, no war, no void could smother. Behind him, a group of dignitaries whispered in lilting alien tongues, voices full of relief and fragile hope. Cale didn't turn. He stared into the galaxy instead, the stars like scattered embers across the dark. Humans were small, fragile, mortal, but they carried fire. The kind of fire that defied extinction, that turned heartbreak into resolve, loss into fuel. Serenia's love had ignited his soul, but her goodbye had forged it into something unbreakable. Cale exhaled slowly, his breath misting in the chill of the observation deck. Then, softly, he whispered into the void as though the stars themselves might carry his words across light years. If love could ignite me once, it will again. The stars did not answer, but in their silence, Cale felt something stir, a promise that the fire of humanity had only just begun to burn. And for the first time since her departure, the cold in his chest no longer felt like death. It felt like a forge. The Resolute drifted in orbit above Veyra Prime, its engines humming low, the scars of war glowing faintly along its hull. Through the panoramic viewport, the galaxy spread out in fire and silence. Alien constellations stitched across the black, fragments of wreckage glinting like fallen stars. Cale Morgan stood at the railing, shoulders heavy, heart heavier. Then the soft hiss of the hatch broke the quiet. He turned. Serenia stepped inside, her silver cloak dimmed by travel, her eyes brighter than he remembered. No guards, no council insignia, just her. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the thrum of artificial gravity filled the air, steady and unyielding. "I told myself goodbye was final," she whispered, her voice trembling like starlight on water. "But humans, you don't let endings stay endings, do you?" Cale swallowed, every scar, every battle, every lonely night in the void pulling tight in his chest. "No, we take what's broken, and we burn until it's whole again." She crossed the deck, her hand finding his. Her skin was still cool, his still warm, a paradox that somehow fit. Outside, neon trails of city ships lit the horizon, weaving new patterns across the stars. Serenia leaned into him, lips brushing close. "Then let's not end. Not ever." Cale smiled, the fire in him no longer just his own. "Together we'll light the dark." Beyond the viewport, the galaxy waited. And for the first time, Cale felt it wasn't endless emptiness. It was possibility.